Good morning, Melanie.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
Good. They said they were worried about a quorum, it looks like we did all right.
Oh, yeah. We could go with just you and Maddie.
All the important people would be here.
All they need is two important ones.
Is that right? Or one bill.
Oh, no. I want no part of running this meeting.
Are your pen? Mine's in my bag, which I left with. I just need it.
That's a good bank. You need to go to the bank now.
At Mission Maid. This is my friend Dennis, right? Isn't this Dennis? Dennis Ann? Mission Maid.
I call the March 14th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Commissioner Abbott,
Present.
Commissioner Selberg,
Here.
Commissioner Brule,
Here.
Commissioner Walker, Commissioner Beller,
Here.
Commissioner Kelly, Commissioner Meal, Commissioner Gordon,
Here.
Vice Chairman Azarmi.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a few announcements. Anyone who has not signed, please do at the table located in the lobby. Should anyone wish to speak, please complete a request to speak form, which is also located on the lobby table next to the sign-in sheet. A request to speak form must be completed for each item you would like to speak on. Please note that there are stairs on the right, left, and the center aisles, and we ask that you use caution when using the stairs. There is also a ramp located to the audience's left. If anyone has written comments, exhibits, petitions, photos, or letters they intend to present at today's meeting, have 17 copies and give them to the staff member at the back of the auditorium. Cindy, she's back there and she's raising her hand. Would you please, you already did that. So if you do not have 17 copies, you may use the overhead camera to present your documents. Please place your document on the podium and line it up with the arrows indicated. If you want your documentation to go on record, you must hand them to the clerk after your presentation with the agenda item number clearly marked on the documentation. Members of the public cannot speak to the staff members that are seated at the tables with microphones during the meeting. If you have questions, please see the staff member located in the back of the auditorium. All speakers will be limited to 2 minutes to make their presentation statement. Everyone, please turn off all cell phones or place them on vibrate during the meeting. If you must take a call, please leave the meeting area and go outside to have your conversation. We also ask the audience to refrain from talking with one another during the presentations and discussion. Today, the Planning and Zoning Commission will hear public testimony and then forward a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The items with the recommendations made by the Commission will be heard by the Board of Supervisors on Monday, April 2nd, 2018 at 9:30 a.m. in the same location, with the exception of any continued items. Everyone attending the meeting is asked to remember that the administrative building and campus are tobacco-free areas, which means no smoking is allowed from curb to curb. No food or drinks are allowed in the auditorium except for the bottled water. If there are any items remaining on the agenda, the commission will break for lunch from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And I believe they have a couple of additional announcements that, Ms. Ballard, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to remind members of the audience that these items will, if a decision is made by the commission, these items will go to the April 2nd BOS meeting at 10 a.m., excuse me, at 9:30 a.m. Also, a reminder for everyone, and this is probably new information for the audience, next month's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be on April 10th, that's Tuesday, at 1 o'clock, or excuse me, at 2 o'clock p.m.
Thank you. I think we continue. Item number 5 is the election of the chairman and vice chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I just open it up for discussion. So we need a nomination. For the chair, for the chairman.
I nominate Mehdi Ozami.
I'll second that. Nomination, I guess.
A question, I don't understand what you just said.
Well, item number 5 on the list that we have
Right,
is the election of the chairman and vice chairman
okay,
of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I didn't understand that.
Okay,
I know a very qualified person, and I'd like to nominate Mehdi for chairman.
thank you. We already have a first and a second on the item.
You're the second.
Any
And
discussion?
I missed that one.
Okay, we have a.
I'll wake up.
We have a first by Commissioner Selberg, and we have a second by Commissioner Brull. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much for your nomination. Okay, we accept a nomination for a vice chairman.
I'll nominate Bill Abbott.
Okay, let me make an announcement.
Did anyone not want to
I
nominate?
basically, in my opinion, the most qualified person for the chair was Bill Abbott, in my opinion, and his seniority and all that. I had a discussion with him. I tried to twist his arm, and he says no, he doesn't want to take any title, chair or vice chair.
Oh, sorry.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So just want to make sure you know that. Same for Keith Walker. He said he doesn't want to be chair, but, with vice chair, he has no objection. So I just want to open it up to everyone on the nomination, board. So,
I'd like to nominate Michael Gordon.
okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion for Michael Gordon to be the vice chair by Commissioner Selberg, and a second by Commissioner Burrow. Discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Congratulations.
So, are we going to, you already took care of item 6, right? On this list that I have? Chris? Do we need to have a motion on that one?
On,
Item 6, the April 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission date and time.
I don't know that you do need to have a vote on that,
Okay,
because the bylaws say it's the chairman's discretion. If it looks like the meeting needs to be moved, then the chairman has the authority to move it.
so again, it's going to be in the form of an announcement, which has already been done. Okay, I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 14th.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Abbott, second by Commissioner Gordon. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we're going to go to our regular agenda. Item number 1.
Item number 1 is an evaluation of a request for an amendment to the Mojave County General Plan from an alternative energy land use designation to a heavy industrial land use designation, and an amendment to the South Mojave Valley Area Plan from a manufacturing land use designation to a heavy industrial land use designation for a portion of Assessor's Parcel 221-35024 in the Fort Mojave vicinity. This is to build and operate a mineral reclamation processing facility. Staff has received 1 letter in opposition. Staff recommends approval.
Okay, we don't have anybody signed up for this item. Do we have the applicant here? Could you come to the podium? State your name and your address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Jim Palmer. My permanent address is in Florida at 4426 Amber Lake Cove in Niceville, Florida. My temporary residence is 505 Riverfront Drive in Bullhead City.
Okay. Do you want to talk about your project and your intention?
Yes, sir. Our project is, as stated, a mineral reclamation system plant. It will consist of 20,000 square feet under roof. We intend to hire, when we are in full production, between 20 to 25 full-time employees, well-paid jobs. The process is very simple. We take old mining ore, and it is packaged in super sacks, which are about 3 feet high, about a cubic yard. They're sealed and they're loaded on the back of a trailer, and they're brought to our plant. And in the plant, we crush that ore down to a very fine powder, and that makes it presentable for applications for a variety of cementitious applications, such as brick pavers, for pigments, and for other uses. All of this is done in-house. It's all done under roof. It is a wet process where we use water, create a slurry in order to do the grinding. And so the material, there is no dust created. The letter that I did get a copy of stated their concern about dump trucks and all of that. None of that applies to our situation. There will be road use in bringing in and taking out the materials after they're completed and ready to be sold. There's 2 roadways. One is Ashley that can give access to Antoinette, which is where this property is. Ashley is a road that's currently being used for the landfill, for access to the landfill. We can use that. We prefer to use an easement that runs directly across the street from the school that's on Boundary Cone Road. There's an easement that goes directly to the solar power plant, and our property is right next to that. We would propose to maintain and take care of that easement. There's potholes and things like that that would need to be cleared up. If there ever are any dust issues from our trucks, we will use a dust suppression system using a truck or whatever to water it down so we don't create any problems to the environment or anyone around us.
Thank you. Just for the information of the commission and also the public, when you mentioned the school is in the south side of the boundary cone, and
Yes,
the proximity is not even close
No,
to the site.
I would say we're over a mile away.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you are right next to the solar farm that is out there,
Yes.
which is consistent with the application. May I ask the staff, the letter of objection, I don't believe that the address was even close to this project. May I ask if you could elaborate on that, please? it seems like it was a general community because the gentleman and his wife mentioned that, they haven't even received any notices.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm not exactly sure how he heard about this. What I can do is I can check our file and see if he was one of the ones that received one of our letters or not. It might be that he owns property nearby too or something.
Mr. Chairman, if I might address that.
Sure, please.
In the letter, he says he did not receive a notice, and the notice, from what I've been told by my engineer, is anyone within 300 feet of our property line. The nearest residential development is at least a quarter of a mile from where we are.
Correct. I'm familiar. I'm from that area, and I just want to make sure that, for the record, mention that, the letter that we received, the proximity is just like a general community comment and not a neighbor, talking about that.
Yes, sir.
And, the solar farm being out there, it is consistent. How many employees you said that you're going to be hiring?
When we are in full production, we anticipate 20 to 25 full-time
20,
employees.
25. And is there going to be any pollution, any noise, any?
No, sir. None whatsoever.
Okay, I'll open it up to the commission for questions,
Mr. Chairman.
please.
Hello. I have questions. You say there will be no emissions from your processing.
Correct.
So there are no stacks on that, and there's going to be no odor whatsoever. And what type of dust mitigation are you going to be practicing for the trucks is what I'm concerned with.
Yeah, well, if we do have an issue with that, we would be glad to have water trucks that can go up and down the
No,
road.
there will be an issue with that. I can see the site from my backyard.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ATVs that run out there, and man, dust is a huge issue. So every time a truck goes up and down those roads, they're going to be stirring up dust because the roads are not made for big trucks. Basically, they're just dirt.
Well, the trucks we will be using are standard pickup trucks. They'll be pulling a trailer on the back. So we're not looking at large trucks. At some point, we might have trucks with larger trailers, but we will maintain the road so that our trucks can get in and out.
What will that maintenance entail? And what I'm trying to see is if I see big dust plumes from trucks going through, what would I do?
Well,
What would any person do if there's lots of dust created from that?
well, we're going to take care of that. As I said, we will be using dust suppression, which includes running water trucks that sprinkle the dust to keep it suppressed. We don't want to have anything that's going to adversely affect the community in any way. So we will absolutely monitor that and make sure of it. There is traffic that is, as I said, on Ashley now, which is, going to the landfill. I don't think anything's being done about that at this time that I know of, but on the easement that I was talking about that runs more directly to where we are, we plan to do whatever needs to be done to improve it, including grading, to make, get rid of potholes and things like that. And then we will also have water trucks as we need to go up and down there. So we make.
How many trips when you're running full operation?
If we're running full operation, it could be as many as 12 trucks a day.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question for the applicant. Where would likely be the final destination of where your product would be shipped to?
It'll be shipped by truck from our plant to various facilities throughout the Southwest.
Okay. Now, would you were mentioning it's a possibility they would be using it to build like a artificial stone or rock, is that correct?
Yeah, we're working with a large aggregate company now that is interested in that for various products of cementitious nature, like brick pavers and things of that
Yeah, I think that could have a great potential for that area because there's a big demand for that.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Most tailings from mines that we know of around here, copper mines and so forth, there's been a substantial amount of chemicals used and leaching out and stuff. Is that going to affect your product in any way?
That's a very good question. No, sir, because we're not going to those mines that have used chemical processes. Everything we're doing will just be, tailings is not really the appropriate term for what we're going to do. We're going to be using waste rock. And
You use what?
waste rock, the rock that just simply came out of the mining process, not a milling process.
Leftover rocks.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This is a question for the staff. I assume that, this application is going to be going through the process of Public Works and all the other jurisdictions and all the permitting process that you need to obtain. So all those are going to be the governing over and above the land use ordinance that we have before us. And, it is consistent, the location that I see consistent with the land use ordinance. So just want to make sure that, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, yes, after he gets approved here, and then after the board, then he would have to go through the site plan process where Public Works, flood control, environmental quality, everybody would be involved. And if they see a need to, if Public Works sees a need to do improvements to the road because of the trips or something like that, then that's something that they would require at that time.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? If not, I enter a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Selberg, and we have a second by Commissioner Beller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I forgot to ask discussion. I'm a rookie. Okay, item 1B.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 1B is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of a portion of assessor parcel number 221-35024 from an RE10A residential recreation 10-acre minimum lot size zone to an MX heavy manufacturing zone to allow for a mineral reclamation plant in the Fort Mojave vicinity. Like said before in the amendment, there was one letter in opposition received. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions and also with the condition that the portion that's going to be rezoned is the southern portion of the property and as defined by Figure A that has been submitted.
Thank you. We have nobody signed up for this item. Same project, same applicant. Do we have any question for the applicant, Commission? If not, if you have opened it up to discussion, any? further
Mr. Chairman,
discussion?
I have one comment.
Okay.
Living on a dirt road, you can have water trucks out there every hour on the hour. And I see a rain, I get 0.6 of an inch of rain, and a day later, there's a lot of dust. So I have a concern that Melanie has, but I don't have anything against the project if it's managed properly.
As Commissioner Broad mentioned about it, we have a lot of off-roading going on in that area, a lot of quads and razors and all that they cost much more, problem in that area. I think, in my opinion, the, employment of 20 to 25, and bringing the industry into the location that is suitable outweighs that. I don't believe that we can, in my opinion, impose, paving the road or anything to this application. I assume that, with growth, that is going to happen, and I'm hoping that Public Works would be able to have that, looked at it, and, I know that, if they were going to do the roadway, they have to use, a material for that reason. So
I agree.
I appreciate that.
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Abbott, a second by Commissioner Gordon. Further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2 A.
Item 2A is an evaluation of a request for an amendment to the South Mojave Valley Area Plan for Assessor's Parcel Number 22804-316 from an agricultural residential land use designation to a commercial land use designation to allow for a commercial indoor storage facility in the Fort Mojave vicinity, South Mojave Valley area. Staff recommends denial for the proposed plan amendment due to the commercial manufacturing land use designation is not compatible with the surrounding land use. Should the commission decide to recommend approval of the proposed land amendment, the following approval stuff follows.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant here? Could you come to the podium, please? Please state your name and the address for the record, please.
Paul Hearns, and I live at 1960 Jerome Avenue in Mojave Valley.
Thank you. Okay. You want to talk about your application?
Well, I've been approached, it's 8.8 acres. It's Aztec and Laquiza Road are paved, and I've been approached by two different parties that they would be interested in a boat storage and just storage there if I get it rezoned, and it's very attractive. I'm giving it a try.
Okay. Mr. Hearn, do you understand why the staff members have a recommendation for denial? Because you're at the heart of residential all around it.
Yes.
So that's why the inconsistency in our land use ordinance becomes an item, because we have it in our land use ordinance that your application has to be consistent with the neighboring properties.
I understand.
So I just want to make sure that, you know the reason that. I open it up to the discussion for the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If we don't, just enter the motion. Are we going to go with the staff recommendation of?
I make a motion to accept the staff recommendations to
For
deny.
denial. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion to deny by Commissioner Beller and a second by Commissioner Gordon. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 2B.
Item 2B is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of assessor parcel number 22804-316 from an AR agricultural residential zone to a CMO, commercial manufacturing open lot storage zone, to allow for a commercial indoor storage facility in the Fort Mojave vicinity. Staff researched the project and found that the closest commercial zoning in the area is approximately 0.53 miles to the west towards State Highway 95. Staff recommends denial for the proposed rezone for the following reason. The proposed rezone to CMO would be considered spot zoning with no other commercial zoning in the vicinity.
Thank you. Same project, same application. And again, I stated that it is in the heart of residential all around it. Staff recommendation is to deny. You have any discussion? An applicant already left, so I enter the motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the staff's recommendation of denial.
For denial.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion for denial by Commissioner Beller and a second by Commissioner Gordon. Any further discussion? Not? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I just want to recognize, staff's recognition of this. It's very important. I'm familiar with the area, and, I believe that, the staff recommendation was right on the money. Thank you. Item 3.
Item 3 is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of a portion of assessor parcel number 207-05007 from a C2H Highway Commercial Zone to an AR3A Agricultural Residential 3-acre minimum lot size zone to allow for a minor land division in the Yucca vicinity. The applicant is seeking to rezone the southern portion of the parcel to an AR3A zone and leave the northern portion of the parcel to C2H. The applicant is then looking to divide the parcel into 5 parcels with 3 residentially zoned parcels on the southern part and 2 commercially zoned parcels on the northern part. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions and with the condition that the approximately 9 acres of the southern portion of the property, as defined by a recorded parcel plat, be rezoned to the AR3A.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant here? Please state your name and your address for the record.
Jonathan Carlton, here is the agent for the applicants. 805 West Atlantic, Kingman, Arizona. Any questions?
I assume that, you have reviewed the staff recommendation and the items and conditions that are coming in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have any questions, any comments, anything that you want to
Nope,
add to that?
I don't believe so.
Any question for the agent? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Second motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Silberg, a second by Commissioner Abbott. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 4 is an evaluation of a request for a special use permit for assessor's parcel number 317-57018 to allow for an off-premise sign in a CMO 1A, commercial manufacturing and open lot storage, 1 acre minimum lot size zone in the White Hills vicinity. The applicant was previously conditionally approved for a zoning use permit for an off-premise sign by the Board of Supervisors in 2014. The applicant was granted an extension of time in 2015, but that extension of time expired on December 1st, 2016. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions.
Thank you. Do we have the applicant here? Would you like to address the commission? Okay, any questions? Does the commission have any question for the applicant? Any further discussion on this item? If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve for staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Abbott and a second by Commissioner Gordon. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is an evaluation of a request for a special use permit for assessor's parcel number 317-57021 to allow for a heliport with 2 helipads in a C2H highway commercial zone in the White Hills vicinity. We received letters from the Federal Aviation Administration not objecting to the 2 helipads. We also received 6 letters in opposition and 2 letters in favor of the application. Staff recommends approval.
Do we have the applicant here? Okay, we have a long list of people. Would you like to address after everybody that? Okay. So we have John Altentop. I hope I pronounced it right. Please state your name and address for the record.
John Altentop, 20167 North Comanche Drive, White Hills, Arizona. I have a residence on Highway 93. 6 days ago, I had a notice of this project that's going on. And let me start with my qualifications. I'm a commercial pilot, fixed wing, helicopter, balloons, gliders, and seaplanes. And I also owned an airport. I'll start with, I don't like this idea. I think it's dangerous. And that's all I can say right now. Also, on this notice that we had, they did not indicate the cross runway. We have 2 runways instead of 1. That's across the existing, close to the airport, close to the Highway 93. Also, high voltage power lines opposite, following 93. It's dangerous because I think I know something about aircraft. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Any question? Please.
I have a question, sir.
Sir?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
You want to go
This
first?
question is not so much for you, but for staff. I know FAA gets involved in every crash that happens, but who gets involved with looking at something like this, to see if it is a good thing to do from a safety standpoint? And that's mainly what I'm concerned, and I think mainly what I've heard. And I've been out there, and there's I believe three heliports already out there very close by.
There's 3 pads following our airport. The project we're talking about is on the left-hand side, on the left-hand side, closer to our runway, our cross runway.
Yeah. But who looks into this to determine it is a proper place to put these for safety reasons?
Right
Maybe
now,
you know the answer.
Right now, our traffic pattern is all around us, and if you approve this project, we're going to have one heliport on one side and another heliport on the other side. And this morning, I found out this is not two pads. They're going to include 16 helicopters. Anybody that's voting for this is asking for trouble and a big accident. That's all I can tell you.
Sir? And first, I just am impressed with all of your background and experience. I'm a novice private pilot. Well, I've been for many years, but I do understand how the airports work. What I want to know is, I know helicopters and planes can coexist. There's not so much traffic in our rural areas that we can't see and avoid each other. But there is a protocol, a courtesy, if you will, and that's in an uncontrolled airport. Basically, it's pilot courtesy that controls everything. The FAA just says they're looking at some basic things, but they're counting on the pilots to see and avoid each other and to follow certain protocols. And what it sounds like you're saying is that those are not being followed and that there are unsafe practices on a regular basis. And what would be a safe practice versus an unsafe practice, and how would this make that airport unsafe?
It all depends on the individual pilot. We don't have a tower.
Right.
So depending, because the helicopter is usually vertical. The airplanes is coming on an angle or around that thing. With this project going into operation, it's going to circle our airport.
Now, isn't a heliport typically would be midfield, because they're going to land, they're going to cross midfield. They're not going to cross on the approach or departure, correct?
That's true, if they follow the rules.
But if they don't follow the rules, and if they don't see anyone out there, I read in one of the letters that there's something about radio frequency and that their pilots are calling, but they're not getting response. They're assuming that there's no traffic.
That's correct.
But then I read something else that said there's a dead spot in that area, so it sounds like there's communication issues, possibly?
At times, it may be. At times, it may be. If the airport's got a control tower, it'd have to be. This is an uncontrolled, we are an uncontrolled airport.
Well,
But
But all the rural airports are uncontrolled, and they don't have a lot of fatalities and accidents because people they call positions, they call when they're in the pattern and so on. So what is different about this is what I'm trying to understand in your mind.
in my mind, it's the distance between the highway and crossing our cross runway, in my mind. And also the power lines. The power lines that, I don't know how many, I think it's 6,000 volts or something, what it is.
And so the power lines are,
The power lines follows 93. The runway is our runway is diagonal to that.
mm-hmm.
So we take off over the power lines. We have plenty of distance. Anybody coming in, we have to, follow the rules.
Right.
But the helicopters usually do not follow the rules. I'm not picking on them. I'm just the way it went.
Well, they don't fly the pattern the plane flies.
The helicopters usually go by the wind, usually. But,
Right. So I'm still not understanding
And the wind usually changes, especially where we are.
right.
Yeah.
So why would additional helicopters be more unsafe? Is it because you perceive that there are already unsafe conditions and this would just increase it? I mean, I'm not really clear on, I mean, I know power lines are there, but power lines I flew, my home airport was Eagle. There's power lines and, I mean.
But the power lines is only, I would say, 60 feet from the 93, and we're right across 93. So what are we talking about?
So on approach or departure,
Yeah.
that's an
correct.
obstacle for everyone.
In a way.
And you're saying the helicopters, it's going to be a more difficult obstacle than it is for the planes
Yes,
because of
they're,
their
they're
approach
vertical.
pattern?
Yes. Yeah.
And they avoid them now.
There's
Right.
nothing over there now. So we just go over the power. We go over straight up, not straight up. The runway the airplane is usually a lot higher than the.
Right.
Yeah.
And the helicopters are avoiding these power lines now.
Uh-huh.
So with additional helicopters landing,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I'm just really unclear as to.
I have a statement.
Thank you.
Won't there be some type of requirement from FAA to have some type of markers on the power lines, like the orange or red balls?
I don't know because.
Or wouldn't the flight
it's
operations
power
or the
company.
operator of that?
Usually on high wires, they have a ball, orange
Right,
balls,
right.
usually.
Sure.
There's nothing over there now, as far as I know.
One question I have, do you have any idea how many flights, takeoffs and landings there are on your side, on the fixed wing side daily?
Well, this note said 2 pads.
No, on the
Now I
fixed
found out
wing,
today,
on
16.
your aircraft, not the
Yeah.
helicopters, currently. How many landings and takeoffs are there? Does anybody have an idea of?
In existing,
Uh-huh.
at least a dozen a day, maybe
Okay.
more.
1 an hour during
Yeah,
daylight?
It could get 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm against it. Thank you.
I have a question.
One moment.
How's the radio frequency in that area?
Usually, there's a common frequency, 1228, 1228, yeah.
So it's not a blocked area that you can't,
It's an uncontrolled, and it's usually in a courtesy basis, if you want to call it that. Depends on the individual
but is the
pilot.
reception good?
As far as I know, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. David Dyer?
Me? Okay?
No, the next gentleman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Dyer, 20454 North Cessna Drive, White Hills, and I'm a resident of Triangle Air Park that we're talking about. I'm really glad to see that we have a pilot up here, and I have an extensive background in aviation, 20,000 plus hours as a pilot, flight instructor, aircraft mechanic. And our concerns here are we already have, with the heliport that's been there already, an incredible increase in potential mid-airs since that heliport's been there. And, you know, the Wright brothers started flying in 1903. The first mid-air was in 1910. Since then, we've been trying to figure out how to take care of these mid-air situations, and we call it to see and be seen and avoid. It's turned out to be the only tool that they had at the time. And for the next 50 years, that's the only tool they had. And it didn't work very well. It was all we had. So then we went to control towers. And you had to have a lot of operations per day. You were talking about 12 to 20 a day. You would have to have several hundred per day for the FAA to give you control towers. And then they space the airplanes and the helicopters so that they're not in conflict with each other. And they put a 5-mile zone around the airport that you can't enter unless you've been trained and agreed to follow those rules. You're not allowed entry until you have radio contact. We don't have that at Triangle. We have no tower. We have a private airport. The FAA is never going to put a tower in out there. The helicopters don't have a tower. So we're on a see and avoid each other type of thing. And here's what happens when you have a mid-air. The eye that you're using to look out and see people, to see and be seen, she'll verify this for me, is that your eye picks up relative movement. That's all it sees. The airplane that's going to hit you and the airplane you're going to hit has 0 relative movement. So it becomes a dot. And the only thing it does if you're going to hit it is it just gets bigger. So there's no relative movement for the major portion of our eyes to pick that up. Looks like...
Yeah, if you could conclude your conversation, because we have a lot of other people signing up. So go ahead and make your conclusion.
So the other thing that's coming up is they have a new procedure for aircraft to transmit position, velocity, and altitude with each other. It's a big subject, but it's ADSB, Automatic Dependent Surveillance. You have to transmit this to a tower, to a radar site. They retransmit it to airplanes that have it. We don't have any towers. We're not going to get any in that area, so we can't take advantage of this. So we're back to what we did in 1910. In Triangle Air Park, half of our airplanes do not have radios, so they don't talk. And that's permitted in a flight zone that doesn't have a tower. You don't have to have a radio to communicate. Now, I've been working with those that have radios, and we do communicate. The people out there do a great job. I mean, I reinforce that with them all the time that, you know, report your position in which you're downwind so we know who you are. The helicopter operation that's going on in the north end of the field right now, when they were approved here, they made a verbal promise that they wouldn't fly in our air pattern and interfere with our flying. A verbal promise is worthless, folks, worthless.
Yeah. If I may ask you to go ahead and, have your closing statement.
Okay, I'm against this totally for safety reasons.
Thank you.
Can I get just one more? Mm-hmm. It's a commercial operation. As a pilot, I engage in this see and be seen. The pilot at a helicopter does too. That's his responsibility. The passengers on those helicopters are innocent. They're not a part of that. They're not aware of the risks they're taking when they fly across our airfield. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
We have a question.
I do. In all of that, are you saying that there are unsafe flying practices that are occurring on a regular basis between the helicopters and airplanes, in your opinion?
Absolutely.
And you see this on a regular basis because of the approach and departure of the helicopters?
That's correct.
And they're approaching and departing in the glide path for the regular pattern for the airplanes?
That's correct.
And how would they normally avoid that? What would be a safe practice for them to be able to coexist?
Well, they're going, it's a tourist operation. They're going to the Grand Canyon. A helicopter is a very expensive machine to operate and maintain. So they take off and they want to go direct, which is right across our field. And that's what they do.
Isn't it typically going across the midfield?
No, it's not midfield where they are now, and it won't be midfield because direct line distance between where they're proposing and their destination.
So they're not crossing the runways at midfield, they're crossing wherever a direct line is to wherever their destination?
They do two things. There's another airport that's north of us that gives them access to the canyon run through the Colorado River. And they will fly that route sometimes, and sometimes they go direct to Grand Canyon West Airport.
So on a regular basis, you've witnessed fixed craft, fixed wing on takeoff and departure where helicopters are using unsafe practices, not crossing the runway at midfield.
That's correct. They
Okay.
are not doing that.
And you see this every time they do it? Do they ever use the midfield crossover, or is it just, are they presuming there's no traffic, or are you just seeing it? Is it like, do you have any idea why or what's going on with that? You just think it's for fuel efficiency?
The helipads that are there now, I think they're on their third operator. In other words, the company that's operating off of that. When you give permission for the pads to go in, they can change operators all the time. And the current operator, they have at least one pilot for the first time in years that is starting to make position reports. And so those of us who have radios sometimes pick him up, but he's the exception. All the other departures and arrivals are totally silent. We operate in a way now that when we get on our airplanes and we take off, we look for the enemy. We don't want a midair, so we have to see.
You should call no matter if you see anyone or not.
We make our calls if we have radios. Half of us don't have radios. But if we do, we make a call what we're going to do, and we take off, and as soon as we get off the ground and we can see over, we try to see if a helicopter is in
Right.
operation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Bill Reed. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Good morning, I'm Bill Reed, and my permanent address is 104 Dogwood, Henderson, Nevada. I have property and a bunch of equipment at the Triangle Air Park, and I fly there and work there pretty consistently day after day. Now, for my background, I spent 30 years in the military flying helicopters. I have approximately 10,000 hours in these helicopters. I have another 5,000 hours in civilian helicopters, and I have an additional 7,500 hours in fixed-wing aircraft, single, multi-engine, commercial, instructor, ATP. Okay, I've been doing this for 55 years. I grew up on an airport, and I've been doing this ever since I've been a kid. Now, thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. And I base my opinion on the helicopter traffic and interfere with the operations of the Triangle Air Park. With over 30 years of U.S. military helicopter experience and more than 10,000 hours, an Army aircraft, another 5,000 civilian helicopters, and another 7,500 in fixed-wing aircraft, I do have a little experience level. The last stop came into use approximately 10 years ago as a cafe and a gas station. It has grown to a much bigger operation, including several helicopters that transport people around. I think that the 2 helicopters there with several flights a day, I'm not aware of helicopter operations were they ever approved there. Conducted at the last up. I fly my personal airplane and in and to and from Triangle Park, which I've been members for some 10 years. I'm also an A&P and an IA mechanic and inspector. And I work on my aircraft and others out there. To place several helicopter aircraft across the road from the Triangle Airport and close property or our active runways would be a disaster looking to happen. We just had a crash in the Grand Canyon that killed 5 people. 5 people are no longer with us today because of that, less than a month ago. The last stop also has this gun range over there where they shoot each other, shoot at things. Some little girl accidentally shot one of the instructors there and killed him, probably less than 2 years ago. That's right next door. You hear guns going off out there all day long. All right. In Boulder City, Nevada, all the helicopter operators came there and said they're only going to have 4 aircraft. Well, that was several years ago. They now have 35 aircraft there operating at such a frequency, there's over 50 flights an hour in and out of Boulder City by primarily helicopters, going to the Grand Canyon. The helicopter operators and the fixed wing operators pay the city of Boulder a significant amount of money every year to use that base as their operations.
Mr. Reed,
I hear you.
Your time is expired. Do you have anything to add to the other 2 gentlemen that, they already reviewed, or is it the same?
No, I just say that if they put that in, if they approve that over there, you're playing with a gun with 5 bullets in it, pulling the trigger, playing, because I'm telling you right now, you're going to have an accident and it's going to be ugly.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. I understand that you think it's dangerous, but I still don't have specific things that have occurred that
Okay.
lead you to believe that that would be the case.
You come to Boulder City Airport and sit in the parking lot for an hour, 1 hour, and you watch all the helicopters coming in, and they cross the runway, they do whatever they damn well want to.
And
These guys are in the same class.
50 flights a day, but we're talking an hour, and we have 12 flights a day out of the air park we're talking about, right?
Correct.
So that's a significant difference. I mean, the amount of travel.
No. There's other traffic that we have at Boulder City Airport, but the commercial operators take up to 50 operations an hour.
In Boulder.
And so this air park, you're not aware of the number of hourly trips
I would
that are
say that
anticipated?
it's on the order of 10 to 12 a day. But the thing about it is, just one accident is going to be enough to make you headlines, and I
Well,
guarantee
absolutely.
it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Accidents are, mid-air collisions are not good, but I'm just not,
I had a mid-air collision in a military helicopter.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Any other question? If not, Mr. Walt Stout?
My name is Walt Stout. I reside at 20495 North Air Coop, Triangle Air Park.
May I ask you to get closer to the microphone so we can hear you?
I reside at 20495 North Air Coop, Triangle Air Park.
Thank you, go ahead.
My residence is approximately 400 feet for these proposed helipads go. I'm the president of the Boulder City Aero Club, Triangle Airport, and we object to this operation due to increased density is creating a bad risk for accidents. You've heard a lot of the details. There's not too much I can add to it, but it's just a very poor situation. It will not be workable. We recommend that you deny it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Mike Heike? Please state your name and the address for the record.
Yes, sir. Mike Hickey, it's 20291 North Mooney Drive, and mine says Willow Beach, Arizona, even though it's at White Hills, it's the same thing, 86445. I've newly purchased property there. I have a hangar in Boulder City, and because of the helicopter activity in Boulder City,
No, your time is not expired.
somebody didn't like what I'm saying. So because of
That was a quick 2
helicopter activity in Boulder City, I chose to move on and move out. I haven't sold the hangar at Boulder City yet, but I'm intending to. The problem I see is that they've asked for 2 helipads with 2 heliports with 16 helipads. So what I see is that the bypass is going to be finished pretty soon, and the operations at Boulder City are probably going to come this way. So the activity level is going to be extreme. The other thing is that there's been no, from any literature that I've received, is what is the flight path of the helicopter? You say go across midfield. Well, that's going across our homes. This is an air park. It's not just an airport. So yes, you're correct as far as flying over midfield. The helicopter's seeing a void situation, but that's where our homes are. So these helicopters are going to be flying over our houses on the way to wherever they're going. There's been no flight path recommendations, nor have I seen anything in writing what they intend to do with this or where they intend to go. And just so you know, these fellows back here, there's an incredible amount of experience. I personally, close to 30,000 hours. I'm currently an American Airlines pilot. I fly a 787 across the Pacific weekly. A&P, CFI, II, MEI, you name it. And pretty much everybody sitting behind me has the same credentials. So I am totally against this. Just the number of activity, the activity level of helicopter, it's coming. It's going to show up. If you guys approve this, I'll bet you anything that everybody at Boulder City comes out here. I'm against it. Any questions?
Yes, we have a question.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So what you're saying is there's 16 helipads being added,
Yes.
and you're thinking that operationally they're going to be moving from Boulder to this as a base. Now, is the FBO or the fixed base operator, are they in charge of the airport? Do they own the airport as well? Or, I mean, because
Or are you
the
talking
people
about
who
Boulder
live in the air park, do they not through like CCNR type thing control what happens in the air park?
To some degree, yes.
So the airspace is not controlled, but the air park itself, those residents or property owners can make rules like, you know, to fly out at 1,000 feet, you know, to pass all the houses before they accelerate, or whatever the rules are that they want to have for their home airport. Can't you create rules through that methodology?
So this is completely different. This has nothing to do with our park. This is a completely different property. Triangle Air Park has homes associated with the air park. So your hangar and your airplane lives with you, and then you taxi out. So these are homes. It's not just an airport sitting out there by itself.
Right, no, I understand the
But
airport.
where are the helicopters going to fly? Are they going to fly over our homes to go across midfield? Because they would have to. Have you not looked at it?
No, I guess the question was that, you know, can you make it safer for your community, you know, by some rules and regulations that you can adopt with the system? Go ahead.
Can we make it safer for our community? There's been no proposal from the people that are going to operate the helicopters as to what they're going to do.
Okay.
That's my question, is that this is just, we're going to put in the helipads, we're going to fly our helicopters, and we're not going to tell you where they're going to go. If
Right.
they go to the east, they're going right over all the homes.
Right, so,
Did you guys
and this
get
is
this?
You can place it on that podium.
this gray area where FAA doesn't have control and no one else does either is obviously where we're
I
at.
guess that's
Right.
it.
Oh, it's going up.
There you go.
There we go, okay. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, okay.
Okay,
So
could we zoom on it, please?
helipads are located, the two stars, and there are 16 this is ports, not pads. So there's
Right.
16 helipads at each star.
Okay.
And if the helicopters take off and go this way, here's the main airstrip,
Right.
right? Here's our crosswind runway. So when you're approaching on a crosswind and helicopters are going to take off and go this way, they're going to be right in the flight path for this crosswind runway. If they take off and go midfield, like you suggested, they would go right over the residence. These are all residential lots.
I guess the question is, you as a pilot,
Yes.
if you are flying out of one of those 16 helipads, what route would you take to be safe? Are you going in that?
I'm not a helicopter pilot.
I'm sorry?
I am not a helicopter
I
pilot.
understand, but I'm saying the flight pattern that, you're talking about, would they, I'm not a qualified person at all about this. I'm saying that if a pilot, takes off from one of those 16 helipads, is that going to go the route that you said, or is going to deviate from it and go away and then, continue a flight pattern?
There's been no proposal as such. Who knows?
Okay, so you're making an assumption that, they're going to make
Well,
the wrong
I'm-
assumption.
Melanie stated that helicopters were to go across midfield. Well, if they go across midfield, they have to go across all of our homes.
Gotcha.
Absolutely incorrect.
That's
Same thing here.
typically-
That's midfield here.
I'm just saying that typically, when you cross an active runway, isn't it at midfield, the safest place to cross it? I don't know, you have the 30,000 hours,
It
you can
is.
tell me.
It is.
Yeah.
If you're at altitude, it certainly is. But what is the helicopter's going to have to go across over our homes? I guess one of the questions I have here is altitude. If you have a home here, it's going to go right over the top of your house.
Okay.
Those activities don't occur right now because all of the activity is this direction from the runway. When they take off, all the noise level is this way. If these guys are going across our home, and there's really nothing to stop them.
And they're in the air park, but the property owners don't have control over rules for the air park. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm probably getting off on a tangent.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, somebody else?
Maybe you can answer this question.
Yes.
Triangle Air Park, do they have, I assume they have commercial application there too, or is it only HOA private use?
Private use, HOA only.
No,
Let me make sure of that. Is that right, Paul?
There's no commercial application for any
no commercial
helicopters
activity.
landing, fueling, or anything like that, right?
No, sir, none.
So it's kind of like an exclusive private airport.
It is a private airport, yes.
Thank you.
And we
Any
all
other
have
question?
lots around it, and we all have access to the communal property, which is the runway.
Thank you. Any other
I'll
question?
leave that up there.
Well, that was the last, oh, no, I have
And
Charles.
just one other thing, I'm absolutely, totally against it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Charles Burrup?
Commissioner Azarmi,
Yes.
Chairman Azarmi, members of the commission, I just want to point out that in our application, there are 2 helipads or ports where they're going to be taking off from. The rest are helicopter parking spaces. So they're parking pads, or for the 16 are the parking pads, and
Yes.
there's 2.
So there are 16 parking pad and 2 takeoff locations?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Charles Barrup, and I reside at 605 Lido Drive in Boulder City, Nevada.
Okay.
And I'm a member of the Boulder City Aero Club, represented by these gentlemen behind us. And rather than read a document into the record, the thing I'd like to do is try to clarify a couple of things I think that might not have been as succinct as we might want them. First of all, there is no FAA requirement that these aircraft have radios. So for us to assume that all we have to do is correct the communication issue, we've got the issue resolved. We really don't. Because as long as there are aircraft in an environment with other aircraft and with helicopters, the chances for a collision are more real than not. And the more traffic you get in the area, the greater the probability that we're going to have an accident. And so I wanted to make certain that we're all aware of that. Secondly, the thing that I'd point out is that if you look at the runways at the air park there in White Hills, you'll notice it's almost impossible for helicopters to approach, and I know this has been touched on, and land by crossing midfield. So all of our concern is one of safety, And it sounds as though, by the nature of the questions I'm getting, that it's almost a foregone conclusion that this is something that's probably going to be approved by the commission. And I would hope that you revisit it in some detail. Let's see if we can't find something that would create an alternative to what we're currently pursuing that would keep us all safe. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, we have a question.
Yes.
Is there any way that helicopters, additional helicopters and the existing air traffic at that park can coexist safely?
If there is, I'm not aware of it, but I must tell you that I'm not as qualified as some of the other gentlemen. I would defer to their judgment because not being a helicopter pilot, I would be misleading if I...
And you're saying because of the airport runway layout that crossing midfield does not make sense because of flying over the homes?
You know, one recommendation I might make is if you had an occasion to drive out there, it's not that far away, and look at what we're really faced with, because it's not really depicted very well. And my belief is at the time of the submission on the part of the parties that want the pad, one of the runways is almost completely eliminated from the schematic. And it's almost suggesting that it might be deceptive.
Well, typically there's only one active runway at a time, depending on prevailing wind. So I don't see a problem with crossing midfield on an active runway because both runways typically would not be used in the same minute, right? It depends on prevailing winds. I guess you could, but it's unlikely.
Well, it depends upon whether or not you're wanting to practice crosswind runway landing.
Oh, gotcha.
Whatever. So
Depends on
that's all
how strong a
possible.
crosswind. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, but my recommendation would be is let's not conclude this too quickly and get this approved. Let's take some time, reflect on it, go out and visit the site and see whether or not there's not a better way of reaching a conclusion that's win-win for all of us. Thank you very much for your consideration. I
If there's
appreciate
any
it.
other question? The only thing, I mean, it was quite educational for me today. Those pilots that they do not have instruments or communication,
yes, sir.
How would they get to Boulder City or those areas that is saturated with the flights around them? Or do they just fly around the, Triangle Air Park and,
There is a provision for that for landing in certain airspace areas. And that procedure, I think, probably Melanie can tell you better than I about what the requirements are. But there's something there for people without radios to communicate by flying certain things to get approval to be able to land there. Quite often in today's environment, they just call in advance and request it, and they'll get specific instruction as to how to enter or depart the airport. But they're calling into a tower under those circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the speaker.
Sure.
Just wondering if there's any possibility that these helicopter groups in your group could get together and discuss some ideas there, because I think no matter what, you've got helicopters in that area right now, and it seems like everybody's concerned about it, but there doesn't seem to be any dialogue in between the two groups there. And I would think that if you guys got together, you could agree on some flight patterns of the helicopters so they could avoid your field. Because I've been up in Las Vegas, I've noticed all night long there's helicopters that go right down I-15 there in an orderly manner, and I would assume that is to avoid the airport there in Las Vegas. And I think no matter what, you have issues now, and in the future you're going to have issues. And I was wondering if you guys make an agreement between you guys in the helicopter industry, would that be something that could be some sort of formal agreement that if you guys didn't abide for it, then there'd be other alternatives of what could be done if people don't comply?
Sure. That's an excellent question. I'd make two observations. First of all, the examples that you just cited, usually though, all of that is occurring in positive control airspace where they have permission to fly or they have to report their position and intention and so they have approval to be in those spaces in most cases. And in terms of being able to get together to work out a solution, I defer to our chairman. That's above my pay grade. So I would certainly think that Mr. Stout might be able to address that.
What I was thinking is maybe the applicant might have some ideas, as well as getting some dialogue and communication with you people as well.
And again, our chairman would have to answer that.
That's fine.
I'm not qualified.
Thank you.
And thanks for your thought, though. I think it's excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Silberg, I agree with you 100%. I was going to ask the applicant about possibility of if there was any meeting already, for this. Go ahead, please. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Honorable Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Tackett Hicks. I'm acting as the owner's agent, 3751 Martingale Drive in Kingman, Arizona. First, I want to say, I'm very involved in this issue. I did, in fact, bring it to at least one of the members of the Triangle Airport, actually a couple of them, before it even came to you guys, before the letters were sent out, because I was concerned. I have a tremendous amount of respect for these individuals. 4 or 5 years ago, I was, in fact, on their side when we opposed the original helicopter location, because we had not received an FAA approval that it was a safe location or that they had approved it. In this case, the reason I'm on this side is because we do, in fact, have those approvals from the FAA, that they did, in fact, do an airspace study for this. They did take into consideration the existing airport and other things, and they felt it was still okay to proceed. I have read every one of those opposition letters. I trust these gentlemen's judgment to a large degree. I also agree with Melanie's statement. I was going to say, most every rural helicopter or airport has these types of issues. And if Boulder City is operating 50 helicopters every hour with their fixed wing, and I don't think they have a tower, maybe they do? No, they don't have a tower. They can make it work. These helicopters, currently there's 2 to 3 per day right now. They would hope to expand that by having the additional helipads. I was not aware that the air park was flying 10 or 12 flights a day. I thought it was much less, but it probably goes in spurts with the weather, I would guess. My entire goal with this, in particular, we all want safety. There's absolutely no one who wants anything but a safe area. But I also firmly believe that we can make this work, and better communication is going to be required. This is not unusual for pilots of helicopters or fixed wings, that they would have to be looking and avoiding, and those are common things that they have to do. And yes, it does add additional burden to the pilots in this area because they're not used to having, additional helicopters. So I recognize that, but there's absolutely a way we got to make this work. If you had a chance to look, and just to bring up some of the other issues, Mr. Abbott, you asked about what the process was here, and if you'll see in your packet, one of the first things that you have to do is request of the FAA approval for a location. And they do look at existing airspace, and they are cognizant of the fact this is uncontrolled airspace. But I'll just quote a few things from these approvals, and there's 2 approvals in your packet. Walt, I had called you last week because I was going to get you guys a copy of this so you would see what was on here if you haven't looked at it yet. But the Federal Aviation Administration has completed an airspace study from the airspace utilization standpoint of the proposal. The analysis determined that the proposal is acceptable from an airspace utilization standpoint. And then there's a few conditions. Operations are to be conducted at the facility only during visual flight rule conditions. The one issue that they did see as potential was, in fact, those wires that are out there, the electric power lines. One individual brought that up. And they are requiring that they put those orange balls on those to make sure that people can see them. They have, in fact, no objection to the proposal, subject to the proponent marking the power lines in the vicinity of the helipads. And I'll just read one more statement. The determination is made with respect to the safe and efficient use of navigable airspace by aircraft and with respect to the safety of persons and property on the ground. In making this determination, the FAA has considered matters such as the effect the proposal would have on existing or planned traffic patterns of neighboring airports, the effect it would have on the existing airspace structure and projected programs of the FAA, the effects it would have on the safety of persons and people. They specifically looked at this. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect, but they did in fact look at it, and they made a physical inspection and wrote this up. If there are problems currently out there with the helicopters, and I did specifically ask if there were any complaints to the FAA, and I don't believe that any have been made. And if you speak with Sundance, who is the current provider out there, they tell me that every time they take off and head in, they do make radio frequency. It is a problem that has to be recognized. We all recognize not all of these pilots have that frequency. So we have to do better at communicating. I want to do better at communicating. I saw David Dyer's, the first opposition letter, and there was no number for it. And I was trying to get a hold of Walt because I did want to sit with him because I think it's reasonable that we should understand traffic patterns. In this case, they'll be taking off north and south, similar to the main runway of the triangle. I absolutely believe they can coexist. The staff has recommended approval of this because it does meet our regulations. We do have an FAA approval. We need to work with the Triangle Air Park better in this communication, and I would hope that you could approve it.
Ms. Hackett, based on what Commissioner Selberg said, I assume that you're open to have a meeting with the members of the airport?
Absolutely.
And have a meeting, so you have no objection for us if the commission agrees to table this for 30 days or 60 days, whatever you think that you can accomplish. So at least come to a discussion and a better communication, on this matter. Are you open
No,
to that?
absolutely. We have to do that. I tried to do that last week because I didn't want to get in this position here of this. It's absolutely reasonable. I absolutely believe we can come up with something. I mean, it happens all over the U.S. It should also happen
Discussion is
here.
good. I'm opening it up to the commission.
I have a question. Kathy, on the FAA letter, item A,
Yeah. The landing area is operated for private use only. That's that's not a commercial airlines. It's a private company.
so it's,
So that's like Sundance could use it.
so that's what they're implying, private not being, I'm just not understanding the private designation there.
Yeah, that's absolutely mine. That is
It's like private
not a
pilot is
commercial-
different than commercial pilot, so they're not, and you would have to have commercial pilots if they're flying passengers, so I'm just a little vague on what their
Right.
meaning is.
So the definition
Well, it
is
doesn't
that
mean that,
versus public, is that what you're asking? Right?
Private versus public ownership of a company is different than private versus commercial flying. So-
private meaning that you have a helicopter operator there, and it doesn't mean that every helicopter flying from Grand Canyon to Vegas gets to stop there. That's not what that is.
Okay.
That's a private company that maintains control and is required to have, the safety protocols and other things. That's my understanding of that.
Okay.
Do you want me to try to get clarification?
I would.
Okay, I'll do
I'm
it.
interested to know what that means. Is it aviation-based or is it business?
Right.
I don't know the use of that word, and one would completely negate your
Right.
situation, so I don't think it's that, actually.
I feel comfortable in what I've told you, but I'm happy to get further clarification. That's no problem.
And I
Thank you.
think
And-
that's very important because one of the, I believe it was Mr. Stout who mentioned that if this is approved, there are going to be a lot of traffic from Boulder City coming that way. So I believe that, what you're saying is that it's not going to be open to other organizations using this helipad. Is that correct?
Well, it means that these are going to be private companies with contracts to utilize that site.
Correct.
So not everyone and their mother gets to just land there. It's not like the Kingman Airport that someone can just come in, fly in and out, and go.
Anyone
Similar
can
to
go
Triangle.
into these air parks. You can fly into these air parks freely.
Pardon
It's
me?
not you can fly into their air park and land. You can't necessarily tie down or stay or do anything,
Oh,
but
okay.
you can land.
Well, I think it would be the same type of thing, and I don't think they're going to I mean, the intent is not to open it up to everyone. The intent is to have an operation there. But I'll get clarification. I do understand the question.
And I agree with the chairman and with Mr. Selberg with regards to having an understanding between everyone who's out there and being very clear on what patterns are going to be flown, because it sounds very confusing right now.
Minds, yeah. Any other question for Ms. Hackett? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just open it up for the discussion among the commission.
I have many concerns. I flew in the first helicopter in 1959 or 60, an S-58 Sikorsky helicopter. It was so noisy, I thought it was going to break my eardrums. Helicopters, unfortunately, have not changed a whole lot. They make a lot of noise. With the thousands of acres that are out there by this little airport and the residents that live there, I have a problem putting a lot more helicopters there just to buzz around. Since I first heard about this, I've made 2 trips to Las Vegas, and I've stopped in there and talked to some people, and they verify what I saw. You'll see a helicopter take off and it goes this way. You'll see another one goes this way. So the consistency with helicopter pilots, they want to be safe. I have one of my best friends owns a Robinson 4-passenger. They do everything they can to be safe. But with the land that's out there and other things, I just think they're trying to interrupt within a small airport where people live, where there's residents, and I think this is the wrong place for something like this. The other problem I have, one of my very best friends with a sheriff looking for a person who was lost, went down in their helicopter in power lines. This is, and like the last gentleman was up there, this is something that needs to be taken very, very serious. So I am totally against what I see at this point.
Okay, but are you open for them to have a communication and
I'm open really for them to have a communication to move it to another location. Okay. That's what I would be open for. I'm not saying, yes, I'd be open to listen to it, because I've been wrong before. If they come back with something that changes my mind, that's fine, but I just think this is the wrong location. I mean, it's in a residential area.
how many residents
I think
are
the
there?
ones that are there are in the wrong area.
Okay. All right.
So I think you understand what I've said, so I'll go along with giving them more time to plan on doing something that is, in my opinion, I don't think is going to change. This is just in the wrong location.
Any other comments? Yeah, I can tell you personally that, my education about this is absolutely zero. So, for that reason, I'm thinking that, for the sake of the project, if they both, because they're all professionals, I think that you're talking about 500,000 hours of flight among this group right there, among that, and then you have an applicant that, the FAA has, doing that. So I'm thinking at least, they should be able to talk to each other before we just, go one way or another. And again, one thing I want to say about, the staff recommendation for approval, they look at it from the land use ordinance, and in the land use ordinance, it is consistent. So to basically let those gentlemen that, that are out there and seeing that, staff made a recommendation, because their job is to see the application, see the land use ordinance, and see if they are matched, and it does match for this application, except for the safety issues that was brought up, or, the power line, residential safety. So that's why we have a discussion, and a healthy discussion on that. So I
have a question. We just turned down a request to approve something because it was in a residential area and they wanted So it was not consistent with the area.
It's the
There's
airport.
something wrong with this plan and project
I'm sorry.
that this is being approved or wants to be approved in what these gentlemen that live there,
Yeah,
a
Commissioner Abbott.
residential area.
Yeah, Commissioner Abbott, one thing that you have to look at it, this is the air park. I have heard from a gentleman in Sun Valley Air Park that was complaining about the noise of airplanes landing and taking off because he bought it in foreclosure. He bought a house in foreclosure in an air park. So when you live in a golf course, you get golf balls. When you live in a Sun Valley airport, you should anticipate planes landing and taking off. It's part of the project. So if it was a R1 subdivisions, single-family residential, I could see your point that it is, inconsistent. But you're talking about the air park, which, as they said, they all have, hangars and they have planes and, they have noise factor going up and down. So I see your point about helicopter making different noise, but what I'm saying is that the staff's recommendation is based on, the air park versus, residential. So I think that's
But I think we've heard from enough years of experience.
Sure.
Saying to justify what I'm saying.
Sure.
These people bought there, they have their airplanes where they can walk out of their house, they can get in their airplane and fly. This is unique to what we're talking about.
Sure. I agree.
Very unique.
I have a statement.
Please.
If you go into North Las Vegas Airport on Cheyenne Avenue or Boulevard, they have that Silver States, or it used to be there, that helicopter flight operations. I mean, if you look at that, and that's just surrounded by commercial buildings and homes, I don't have a lot of faith in the FAA approving a lot of things, because that's right in a very high-density, area with a lot of people. So,
Yeah, and again, if I may add, my point is not that, we're going to approve it or anything like that, Commissioner Abbott. I'm just saying that for the sake of let them have the discussion and then bring it back, and then, the commission can make that decision. That's my suggestion.
Okay, I have a question. Will we get the same effect? These gentlemen, I put myself in their position. They're spending valuable time to come here.
Sure.
That one of them come back as a representative of what they all decide and report to us, that they don't all have to come back
Sure.
unless they want to.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, that's up to the commission to make that decision if they want to, table it and have them have the open discussion and then come back to us. That would be fine.
Well, I would make a motion, we table it for, you tell me how long.
We need to ask Kathy and also the group. Do you think that it can be done within 30 days?
60 or more.
60? Okay. Okay, go for 60, Commissioner.
Or 60 days.
For 60 days. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll make a motion.
No, you already made the
We
motion.
table.
I'm waiting for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Abbott, a second by Commissioner Burrow. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all for coming over, and thank you for educating us. I have zero knowledge of the airplanes and flights,
You
and
should be up in the air.
I go up there, but I pay a ticket for the airline.
I hope so.
Okay, item 6, I believe.
Item number 6 is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of a portion of assessor's parcel number 30640-002D and 002E from an AR3A agricultural residential 3-acre minimum lot size zone to an AR agricultural residential 1-acre minimum lot size zone to allow for a minor land division in the Golden Valley vicinity. The applicant is seeking to rezone approximately 4 acres of the northern portion of the two properties to split into the 4 1-acre parcels, and then they would combine the southern portion of both of those parcels to create 1 3-acre parcel so that it continues to comply with the current 3-acre minimum lot size zoning. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions.
Thank you. Do we have the applicants here?
Jonathan Carlton, 805 West Atlantic, Kingman, Arizona, acting as the agent for the applicants.
Okay, do you have anything to add to the
Do not.
application? Do you have any question from the agent of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion on this item? If not, I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Is your, okay, you want to, is it on?
I'll make a motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Second motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Selberg, a second by Commissioner Abbott. Any further discussion? Not? I'll say, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Item 7.
Item 7 is an evaluation of a request for a rezone of assessor's parcel number 32409-388A from a C2 general commercial zone to a C2H highway commercial zone to operate a manufactured home dealership in the Kingman vicinity. Staff recommends approval with standard conditions.
Okay, do we have the applicants here? Yes. Would you like to? Do you want to answer any question just in case? Do you want to add? If there's any questions. Okay. Do we have any question, Commission, do we have any question for the applicant? I guess they don't. Okay, open it up to discussion. There is none. I enter the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve for staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Abbott, and we have a second by Commissioner Beller. Any further discussion? Not? All in, say aye for the favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 8.
Item number 8 is an evaluation of a request for a renewal of a special use permit for assessor's parcel number 332-23005E to allow for a kennel, cattery, in an AR 10A agricultural residential 10-acre minimum lot size zone in the Long Mountain vicinity. This will be the third renewal for this property, and staff recommends approval with the conditions and point out that condition number 2 is that this renewal will be in effect without expiration.
Okay, do we have the applicant here? Would you like to address that? Please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Arden Morley, and I live at the property 860 West Quail Crest Road. And it's actually the property that the cattery, it's actually a sanctuary for cats.
Oh, okay. How many cats and dogs do you have there? Is it only
No
cats?
dogs. We have 187 cats. We're actually approved for 200. All of the animals are getting older. The average age is now 11 years old. So they're dwindling. We're not accepting any new animals. We're just hanging on to these until they're either adopted or die of natural causes.
Oh, thank you. Any questions from the applicant?
I have a question for staff. Has there ever been a complaint against this kennel? And I ask that because I visited it several years ago and talked to you, and I've been back by it, and I'm very impressed with what goes on there.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Abbott, we're not aware of any complaints against the cattery, and in fact, that's one of the reasons why we're recommending the expiration date not be included.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add that we have been inspected annually. We are USDA licensed, we're Arizona Game and Fish licensed, we're licensed by Mojave County Health Department. We've never had any non-compliance issues, and every time the health department has come out, they've actually told us that we are the nicest facility in Mojave County, and they wish the other facilities looked like ours.
Yeah, we sincerely appreciate what you're doing for the
Sorry,
animals.
I can't, I'm very hard of hearing, so
I
I
say,
can't.
we said we appreciate what you're doing for the animals, cats in this case, so we thank you for it.
Thank you.
I have a question for the staff. So the extension of the time we are giving, we are recommending to the board, is that going to be for how long now? I mean, time-wise?
Mr. Chairman, staff is actually recommending that this particular facility not have an expiration date. We've had them go through two two-year periods with extensions, and during that period of time, there's been no complaints that we are aware of. They seem to be in good standing with all the other permitting agencies.
So this is going to be no expiration until if there is a complaint or anything like that, that then it becomes, comes over, right? I mean, is that how it's going to be?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if there is a complaint, depending upon what type of complaint is, the appropriate agency will just handle it. It will not come back to the commission.
Thank you.
If it's a land use complaint, Development Services will handle it. If it's a health type complaint, then the health department. If it's animal cruelty, then it'll be the sheriff's department.
Okay, thank you. Any question from the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I open it up to the discussion, commission. If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Selberg, a second by Commissioner Gordon. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Lady does a great job there.
Well, thank you. That's
Kennels give me a problem, but that one doesn't.
all right. The general statement, I had to do the old-fashioned way. I didn't have the computer for my first session, so now I appreciate that computer so much. I had to go through like a whole book for that. Is there any, I guess we have called to the public? It's called to the public on an item that is not on the agenda. If you have anything to say, in general, not item on yours already been approved. Thank you.
It's okay.
You're okay.
I can't hear.
That's all right. Okay, if you don't have, thank you, Director Walsh. Okay, I have an announcement by Mrs. Fluchet. I got the email that she wanted me to read to you. It says, "Hello, Mehdi. At your next P&Z meeting, will you please give a heartfelt thank you to the commission and staff? Also, thank whoever brought the very lovely basket of flowers and Carl's nameplate to Havasu." Commissioner Gordon. "I'm so happy you all thought highly of Carl and his work on the board. He was proud and honored to have served and to work with people of integrity. Carl's Love of Life celebration will be at Shiguru Bridgeview Room beginning at 3 p.m. on Saturday, April 14th. Guests are asked to wear their favorite hat and happy socks. Once we've finished with the opening family formalities, please have Carl stories ready to share." And obviously thanking the commission for that. So I just want to make sure that you are aware of that. Definitely we're going to miss it. I believe we are done with the commission. Is there anything else that we need to talk about? Director Walsh? Ms. Ballard, anything? If not, enter motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Selberg and a second by Commissioner Gordon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.